So, welcome everybody to Conservation Conversations. My name is Bridget Sanderson. I'm the Director of Environment Missouri based out of Kansas City. It's 6:01 now that we're going to kind of start going and kind of wait for people to start trickling in and everything. So, Conservation Conversations kind of came out of Kate from Environment Maryland and myself kind of wanting to, bring people together during, this time, this weird time that we're living in, and sit down and still kind of talk about different environmental themes that we still think are incredibly important, and just kind of, keep people's brains on environmentalism every now and then. So, and also, sense of camaraderie. Hailing from the Midwest, I am incredibly excited for our speaker today because I know nothing about sharks. So I'm really looking forward to this. So I'll let Kate kind of go ahead and introduce Dr. Mikki as well.
Great. Thank you, Bridget. I'm Kate. I'm from Environment Maryland. Just like Environment Missouri, we are a statewide citizen-based environmental advocacy group, and we are really excited to have you on today. I just want to do a brief introduction of Dr. Mikki, who we are so excited to have. So Dr. Mikki is the executive director of the Ocean First Institute. They are a nonprofit with the mission of ocean conservation through research and education. Her research focuses on the sensory biology and ecological physiology of sharks, skates, and rays. Dr. Mikki is involved in several collaborative projects that include multi-species census and tracking movements aimed to guide conservation. Dr. Mikki has been invited to do tons of amazing things. She has been, her efforts for what she does have been documented by the BBC, National Geographic, Shark Week, which I can't even, and the Institute itself, the Ocean First Institute, check it out after this, supports expeditions and a variety of education initiatives, which have reached 110,000 students in 35 countries. Dr. Mikki has a PhD in integrated biology from Florida Atlantic University, and we are truly honored to have her today. So, Dr. Mikki, I'm going to turn it over to you now, and if there's anything else I can do to help in the process, I will. We're going to let you do your presentation, and then we will save some time at the end for questions from all of our attendees.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Kate and Bridget, for inviting me here today. I am so excited to be able to talk about my favorite thing in the whole wide world, and that is sharks. So tonight, what I'm going to try to do is share my passion with you through a presentation, and it'll be about 20 or so minutes, and then I think we'll leave enough time at the end for some questions from the audience. So I'm really excited about that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen real quick, and I'm going to get my presentation started. So let's see here. Here we go. All right. So Bridget, can you see and hear me still and see the screen? All right, perfect. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and kick it off. So we're going to be talking about sharks, the amazing world of sharks. And I'm going to just share with you how I got interested in sharks in the first place. It's kind of a funny story. So I grew up in Colorado. That's where I live now, outside of Boulder. And I was like every other normal kid, spent a lot of time in the mountains, had a good time with my family, camping and whatnot. And then everything changed for me in the summer of 1975. I saw the movie Jaws, and the movie scared me to death. After I left the theater with my big brother, I was terrified of sharks. I had a huge shark problem. I thought sharks were under my bed, under the kitchen table. I was terrified. And the only way that I knew to overcome my fear of sharks was to read about them. And the more I read about them, the more I realized they were not the monsters that they were portrayed as in the movies, which just kept coming, by the way. And so we love to kind of villainize animals like sharks and turn them into monsters. I mean, we do really good in movies like Sharknado and all that. So You take it with a grain of salt, and it's a little bit silly. I mean, it gets pretty crazy having sharks eating airplanes and whatnot. But, you know, it really spurred for me the idea that, you know, the world needed to know the truth about sharks, and predators have a hard time in the world. That's for sure. So for, you know, since I've been a kid, I've been, you know, telling everyone I can about sharks and to try to share their true story. And tonight I'm hoping I'll be able to do that with you. So as I got a little bit older, I moved down to the Florida Keys to become a scuba instructor, which was my dream. I wanted to spend as much time as possible underwater with sharks and to take as many people with me as I could. And so that was an extraordinary time for me to learn about their movements and behaviors and to spend time with them underwater. It was really one of the best times of my life. And it opened up other doors for me and opportunities. And I ended up going back to school and getting a PhD, asking questions about sharks. And so I became a scientific researcher and traveled all over the world working with other people who were interested in sharks and trying to answer fundamental questions about their movement, their biology, their sensory biology, how do they work from the inside out, and really learning ways for us to conserve sharks, because they now more than ever need our help. So, you know, that's kind of my story on how I got interested and what I really love. And now I want to share the story of sharks with you. And when we do that, it's important to understand that our universe is thought to be over 14 billion years old, and our planet ocean, if you look at it from space, is over 4 billion years old. And because we have water on our planet, we have life. And life got really big and interesting around 440 million years ago. That's when we saw the rise of the very first jawed vertebrates, and that includes the fish and the sharks. Sharks are fish. And so look at to the left there, you see a shark that looks like it has a buzzsaw in its mouth. This is a real shark. We see it in the fossil record. It's called Heliocoprion. It literally looks like it has a buzzsaw in its mouth. And if you look over to the right, you see Stethiocanthus. This is a shark that looks like it has an ironing board full of bristles as a dorsal fin. So how bizarre. And these are some of the early sharks that gave rise to many of the sharks we see today. But remember, this is way before the time of the dinosaurs, which we think of as very ancient creatures. Dinosaurs no longer exist on our planet, as you know. Scientists believe they went extinct because of a large meteor impact that changed conditions so much on the planet they could no longer survive. But who was already here swimming in the ocean at that time? It was the sharks. So the story of the shark is the story of survival. They have lived through 5 mass extinction events on our planet. They are true survivors. And right now, sharks, skates, and rays, they are all collectively called the elasmobranchs. They're closely related. They have skeletons on the inside. So you can see this little shark I have here. That's the outside. But on the inside, sharks have skeletons, just like you and I do. Backbones and vertebrae and all that, but they're made of cartilage, not bone like you and I have. And cartilage is what's at the end of your nose and in your ears. And so they are called the cartilaginous fishes because of that. And since they have been on the planet so long, they have radiated into nearly every aquatic habitat on the planet. This includes the brightly lit coral reefs, the muddy waters of the Amazon. I have spent time in the Amazon studying these gorgeous freshwater stingrays that have polka dots on their bodies. They're amazing. And we have sharks like this Greenland shark that lives under ice in the polar regions. And new research tells us that this shark may live upwards of 400 years. How amazing is that? 400 years. It could be the world's longest lived vertebrate. And then we have sharks like this frilled shark that lives in the deep, dark ocean where sunlight may never even penetrate. So imagine living a lifetime in near virtual darkness and all of the adaptations they have.
So when we study sharks, it's important to understand the tremendous diversity. There are over 500 different shark species swimming in our ocean today, all of which have different body shapes, body colors, different shapes of their teeth. They have different reproductive strategies. Some have to continually swim to survive, whereas others can lay on the seafloor all day long. So the story, again, of the shark is a story of tremendous diversity. So I want to take you on a journey with me now, and I want to share with you some of the craziest, weirdest, coolest sharks that are swimming in our ocean today. And I'm going to start with the biggest one. This is the whale shark. So the whale shark is the biggest shark in the ocean. It gets upwards of 50 feet long. It's really incredible. So you can see it here swimming with these beautiful polka dot markings. It's near the surface of the water, and it's opening its mouth. And right here, you're going to see me and my son swimming right next to this big shark. And you might think, Mikki, why would you do that? Well, these are totally harmless animals. They're filter feeders. So the whale shark is opening its mouth and filtering tiny little plants and animals called plankton into its mouth and feeding on those. So the biggest bodies in the ocean are being fueled by nearly microscopic plankton. It's absolutely incredible. So these animals are gorgeous, and you can swim with them if you want to. It's amazing. So to go from the biggest to the smallest, this is the dwarf lanternshark. This is as big as it gets. It can fit into the palm of your hand. It's a deep sea shark. It has really big eyes compared to the rest of its body. But what's amazing is some of these sharks actually glow in the dark. So we have glow in the dark sharks. I'm not kidding. So right here, you're going to see the velvet belly lantern shark. And what it does is it uses chemicals inside its body to create light called bioluminescence. And so as its belly is glowing green, it blends into the downwelling light, which really helps it camouflage. So it's a strategy the shark uses in order to continue to survive. This next shark is one of my favorites. This is the Mako Shark. This is the cheetah of the shark world. They have a very special adaptation I'll talk about in a second. This is a GoPro camera positioned on the back of a boat that has bait trailing off of the back. And this Mako shark is coming in and grabbing those bait and doing it with incredible precision. And so the eyes of the Mako shark, as it's swimming upwards of 50 miles an hour, have to work really fast. And so what they call that temporal resolution. So the way the Mako achieves this is it actually superheats its eyes to be warmer than the ambient temperature of the water it's in. And so this gives the Mako shark an advantage. Its eyes are working at their optimum. And that allows the Mako shark to see very fast moving prey, like the bait hanging off of a moving boat. And it's able to snag those fish with precision. So the Mako shark is truly an amazing, it's our cheetah of the ocean. It truly is incredible. So this next shark, talking about eyes, is called the big eye Thresher shark. So the Thresher shark does have a big eye, but the action in this shark is in the tail. So the big eye Thresher has what we call a heterocercal tail. It means one lobe of the tail is longer than the other, and it uses it as a weapon to stun prey. So you can see right here, it's using its tail to whip fish that are in a school. And so what it does is it'll stun those fish, turn around, and it'll easily catch those fish into its mouth. So this is an adaptation in the tail to maximize the feeding success in this shark. So this is the Indiana Jones of the shark world. How amazing. It's just incredible to see this shark. Did you know that we have land sharks? So there really is a shark that can walk on land.
So this is the Epaulette Shark. It lives in northern Australia, and it literally can walk on the reef during low tide. It uses its side fins or pectoral fins to help it maneuver on the reef during low tide, and it goes into pools where fish are trapped, and it's able to feed on them. So again, walking, it's a motion we call punting. These sharks are able to move into these pools and find themselves an easy meal. Okay, so I promised I would do this shark tonight. This is probably the ugliest shark by far in the ocean today. This is the Goblin Shark. So it is Halloween all year for the goblin, who lives in the deep ocean. And you can see it has a very weird snout that's sticking straight out. It's called a rostrum. And it's got this horribly large jaw with very pointy teeth. And if you look at it from the front, it doesn't get much better, I'm afraid. You can see it's got these needle-like teeth that are all kind of snaggly and pointed inward. And so having these teeth pointed inward is a way for the goblin shark to grab something and make sure that it's not going to get away. But the weirdness doesn't end with the snaggly teeth and the really weird rostrum. The goblin shark has one more trick up its sleeve, and you just won't believe this. So take a look at this goblin shark as it hits a diver's arm. Watch what happens to the jaws. Oh my God. It's unbelievable. So the jaws of the goblin are not fused to their skull, and so they can actually protrude out in order to help them capture and keep their prey. So this is a very bizarre adaptation in the goblin shark to maximize its feeding success. So you see a theme here. Feeding food is very, very important to sharks. And so this is just one more very, very strange adaptation. So to go from that really long snout going in the goblin to then having your head stretch this way, we have to talk about hammerheads. Hammerheads are by far and away the weirdest sharks swimming in the ocean today. This happens to be the scalloped hammerhead shark. It's kind of the one we all think of about hammerheads. And what's incredible is they school together in hundreds in the Galapagos and Cocos Islands. And there is a social hierarchy in the schools of these sharks. They have dominant females, they have a social structure, and we believe they have an intelligence on par of a common domestic dog. So it's incredible to think that there is a social structure among sharks, which are fish. You wouldn't think that they would have that kind of intelligence. But again, we're learning so much about our resilient ocean. So what you might not know about hammerheads that is absolutely astounding is there's more than one species of hammerhead. There's actually over 10. And there is this whole like gradation of their head expansion from kind of normal shark to what you think of as a hammerhead to just flat out weird. And that's in the one called the Winghead Shark. And you can see it here. It truly is like a swimming boomerang. And of course, we find it in Australia. So I got to go to Australia and a place called Darwin in Northern Australia to try to study this elusive shark. I was never able to catch one. I caught a saltwater crocodile one time and a venomous snake, saw a lot of lizards, but never found my winghead shark, but was able to work on some in the museum there. So it was really quite amazing to be able to look at these animals and kind of learn a little bit more about them. Here is what the head looks like on a winghead. You can see those structures. The skeleton is very different, that cartilaginous skeleton all pulled out. And really for my whole PhD, I studied hammerheads and their eyes and their sensory systems and, you know, what has it done to them to have these weird structures. So I know we're right around 20 minutes, so I just have a few more minutes of just to talk a little bit about my research and why I feel research on sharks is so critically important. So I'll take just a few more minutes on this. One of the big things that's happening to sharks today
is that they're in trouble. Not all sharks, but some shark species of the 500 I mentioned are in trouble, and in fact, some are endangered. And the real truth is that reason is us. Human beings are taking out more sharks from the ocean than can replace themselves in many cases, and we're doing it for sort of a really weird reason. We're doing it for what's called shark fin soup. So many of you may have heard of this. It's a delicacy in Asia, and we're taking out anywhere from 40 to 100 million sharks a year for this reason. And that includes, unfortunately, my very beloved hammerheads, because they have very big fins compared to the rest of their body. And so they're targeted expressly for their fins. And so for the last 5 or 6 years, I've been working down in Costa Rica, which is kind of a hammerhead hotspot, trying to figure out more for the protections of these very endangered species. And I work in particular in a place called Goblin, which is in the southern western part of Costa Rica, where researchers discovered little baby hammerheads abundant in this region. And they discovered the fishermen in that area were using them as bait because they didn't realize they were endangered species. And so my colleagues down there have worked so hard to tag and track the young hammerheads to find out where they're going, where are the mothers of these pups going, how can we protect them? And so I was able to work with them on a grant, and here I am holding a very, very young hammerhead, scalloped hammerhead. We've just tagged it, and I'm spending a few seconds there. It may look like it's really interesting. We're making sure it's okay before we release it. We want to make sure that these animals are strong enough to swim on their own after we tag them, and that shark definitely was. And what's exciting to report back to you is that in 2018, the Costa Rican president declared Goblin as the world's first hammerhead shark sanctuary. So they are now swimming in a protected area, and rangers are being trained in order to try to protect these animals. So it's really exciting for us to be part of that and to really see where that leads in the future. And I'm going to take one last minute to share one last project with you. And this is it. This is the poster child of sharks, right? This is the white shark. So this is a very, very big shark. This is a great white shark. Her name is Deep Blue, and she is swimming in a place called Guadalupe, Mexico. And she is probably the biggest shark ever filmed, ever. And when she turns the corner here, take a look at her belly. She's a female, and she's thought to be pregnant here. And great whites can have up to 5 shark babies inside their body at one time. They give birth to live young, and she's probably very pregnant here. So the question is, how big do they get? So great white sharks get to be about 22 feet in total length. That's as big as they get, but we don't know. It's hard to measure some of these sharks sometimes. And so I was asked to come to Guadalupe to try to figure out how big some of the sharks are and find a way to do it without touching them. So we came up, I asked students in a high school here locally in Colorado, to help me devise a device that we could use to do that. And they did just that. They came up with a non-invasive technique to measure sharks underwater. Are you kidding me? This is crazy. But they did it. And what they came up with is using 2 lasers set a known distance apart with a camera in the middle. And then what we did is, that's me underwater on scuba gear in a cage in Guadalupe with great white sharks swimming around me. And what I want to do is wait for a shark to swim by, and I can shine those 2 laser dots onto the side of the shark. I know those 2 dots are a certain distance apart, so I can look at the footage later and figure out how long the shark is. And so it's great. It's a simple, easy way for us to be able to measure these animals underwater. And it works, and it worked really well. So here is a very pregnant, another female named Scarborough, and we were able to measure her at about 18 feet long. Very, very big shark. And when we were there, we saw all kinds of strange behaviors. It looks like this great white shark has a hairball or something, or dancing. I don't know. Again, these are the most iconic sharks in the ocean, and we still don't know some of their most basic behaviors. And where they give birth to their young. You know, we're still understanding the puzzle pieces here. So it's just truly incredible. And so I know we're kind of going over time, so I think I'll stop here if that sounds good, or can we keep going for a little while longer?
You can keep going. Yeah, I think I'm enthralled. So I think if you have a few more things you want to do, go for it.
Sure. Okay, perfect. I will then. And so this is our laser device. I take students on expedition with me. A lot of times I'll go to the Bahamas because they protect their sharks in the Bahamas, so I love to go there. This is a Caribbean reef shark that you're looking at, and I'll take middle and high school students with me to collect data. They're scuba divers, and they'll collect data with me on these trips. It's absolutely astounding. And then they upload the data that they process into our citizen science database. So it's really exciting to get students to overcome their fear of sharks, go into the water, collect data, upload the data, analyze it. It's just, it's really fantastic. And the last thing I'll share with you is something I'm really excited about. Last November, I was asked to go up to Nova Scotia, Canada, to help tag great white sharks up there. And it was a really cool opportunity for me to do a few different things while I was on that expedition. But this is the vessel that I went out on. It's called OCEARCH, so it's a very large vessel. And the goal was, the overall goal of the project is to tag 60 great white sharks with transmitters that when the shark's dorsal fin breaks the surface, it sends a signal to satellites and gives us a GPS positioning of that shark. So we can know exactly where that shark is at a given moment. So we had these tags that we were ready to deploy, and we wanted to do 20 adults, females, 20 adult males, and then 20 juvenile white sharks to kind of give a snapshot of what's going on in the Northeast Atlantic Ocean. So here I am, excited as can be to be on the OCEARCH vessel. I'm so excited. Really happy to be able to go fishing and look for these sharks. And one of the things that you learn as a research scientist someday, if you ever become one or you're interested in biology, is a lot of times when you go to collect data, you have to wait. When you go fishing, you have to wait. And then your wait is over, and it is unbelievable. So this is one of the sharks that was captured on that trip, and it was incredible. This was a very large female. And you can see on the dorsal fin, there is that tag that I was mentioning that will allow the shark to send that signal via GPS so that we can get those coordinates. And this is what it looks like when you're on the vessel. You're fishing for the sharks off on a small boat on what's called a drum line. And as soon as a shark gets on the line, we know it shakes the buoys and we know we have a shark. And then we'll bring that shark to the side of the vessel where we have a platform that's raised out of the water. And that allows us then to work on the shark safely and gather all of the data. So I can tell you, if you watch NASCAR, as soon as the shark is on the platform, all the scientists converge out like NASCAR pit crew people trying to collect all of their data, from blood to looking for microbes to doing ultrasounds. I got to do an ultrasound when I was there. They put the tag on. So there's all kinds of data that is being collected. And that's the beauty of it, is, you know, not everyone has access to these animals. So all of us should maximize the data collection. And that's exactly what happens. And then as soon as all of the data is collected as quickly as possible, the shark is released back into the wild. And I'm happy to say that the tagging has been so successful in this project, and we've been able to see that the sharks tagged in Canada went all the way down the coast to Louisiana in the Gulf of Mexico in a very short amount of time. This is mind-blowing data that we just have never had the ability to resolve with that much detail. So we have learned so much in just the last 4 to 5 months about the movements, migrations, and patterns in these different sharks. So it's been a tremendous opportunity for us to really understand what's happening. So as you know, sharks are a very important part of a healthy ecosystem. And right now, more than ever, we know nature is resilient. Sharks are resilient. They just need our help in having a chance.
to really rebound and to come back. And so I hope you've learned some things today in this talk. And I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen, and I'd love to take questions.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mikki. That was amazing.
Great, thank you.
We already have some questions. I'll save mine. And so what we'll do what we did last week. I'll read the first one, and then Bridget will read the next one, and we'll go back and forth. The first one is from an honored guest, Dean from Maryland. He's 6 years old and is a shark aficionado. And his question is the Mako Shark the fastest in the world?
Yep. Hi, Dean. Nice to meet you. Thank you for being a shark aficionado. I hope someday you become a shark researcher. Makos are the cheetahs of the ocean. They are the fastest. They get clocked over 50 miles an hour. So these are truly the sprinters of the ocean. They have special adaptations, not only in their eyes, but in their musculature. They're lamnid sharks. So they superheat their bodies just as well to keep those muscles warm and allow them to just burst, have these incredible bursts of speed with their bodies. So they are truly remarkable sharks.
Okay, I'm actually going to read a question. I have a couple questions off of Facebook Live. One is, this is so cool. And again, also, thank you so much for doing this. Dr. Mikki, what's your favorite type of shark, personally speaking?
Ooh, that's a tough one. You know, I kind of flip-flop a little bit. I'll tell you, I do love the hammerheads. They're kind of my favorite. But I've also been, falling a little bit for the great white sharks too. And I also love, did you know there's such a thing as a pajama shark? I'm not even making this up. So yeah, I kind of like them too. Pajama sharks, look that up when you can. They're amazing.
That's awesome. This is the greatest experience of my life. Our next question for the webinar comes from Chris, who's also from Maryland, and this question makes sense for Chris. He works to protect Sligo Creek, which is a waterway behind where he lives. And so his question is, you mentioned the massive number of sharks that humans take out of the water. What is the status of and enforcement of protection efforts around the world? So that's a big question, but
you know what? I'm happy to say that the United States of America is incredible in managing their fisheries, and I would say we're probably one of the best in the world when it comes to that. I'm very proud of what our National Marine Fisheries Service and our apex and migratory species personnel do. I think we do a really good job. I think the issue here really that is of concern to me is really the black market that is driven by the demand for shark fins, and that drives illegal fishing, unreported fishing. And that's why when I say anywhere from 40 to 100 million sharks a year, we don't know because we don't get the reports. We don't have the true numbers of sharks that are taken into these sort of black markets. And so that's the concern. And again, and I don't want to scare you, not every shark is endangered. They really are not. But I would say a good 30% of sharks are in trouble. And what's also alarming is there's another about 30 to 40% of sharks that are what we call data deficient. That means we don't even have enough information about their life history to classify where they are on the spectrum. So we have a lot of work to do, everybody, and we do. It's an all hands on deck thing. We need to study nature more. We need to value our natural ecosystems and services more than we do. So yeah.
Okay, I've got another one off of the Facebook Live. It says, how do you prevent a shark to not eat you?
Oh, well, I'm going to tell you something really funny. This is from a shark biologist. I'm not even making this up. So I have had a few sharks in the wild try to snap at me, couple. But the thing that gets me almost all the time, and the one that I literally have scars from, are shark jaws that I take into schools to share with students. So that's really where my injuries come from. And I'll just go on for 1 second because this is just so cool. This is the jaw, a real jaw from a tiger shark. Tiger sharks are the #2 most dangerous sharks swimming in our ocean today. And I want you to see, before I even show you close up, I'll show you kind of a normal shark. This is a sandbar. You can see the shark's teeth are triangular. That's kind of what you think of when you think of shark's teeth, right? Well, what's cool with the tigers is their teeth are weird. They have notches in them and they look like knives and saws in combination. And that's exactly it. You know what tiger sharks eat? Pretty much whatever they want. They can eat pretty much anything. And what's weird is sharks' teeth are modified scales. And so on the inside business end of a shark, you can see they have these layers of teeth and it's like a conveyor belt. So they're always being pushed up and out. So sharks lose their teeth all the time, thousands over a lifetime. So you would never want to be a shark tooth fairy. You would be too busy. But that's why we find sharks' teeth fossilized all the time. So these are shark teeth, whoops, in the rocks. And we find shark fossils. And that's pretty much all we get to know about sharks because they are, their cartilaginous skeletons don't fossilize very well.
That's incredible. Okay. It's so hard to just move on to the next question because you show this thing and it's like, okay. Our next question is from Corey. How long does the typical shark tagging and data collection take? So what you were talking about earlier, what's the general, how long does it take?
Well, that's a great question. And it depends on the money because tags cost a lot of money and you can get tags that live longer than others. So what I didn't mention is there are tags that you can put on the inside of a shark. Those tags are called acoustic tags, and those tags can last upwards of 5-6 years. Some of the satellite tags can last several years. But again, it depends on which tag you pick, and that depends on the question you're asking as a biologist. So there are several tools in our tool belt, and we're going to use all of the ones that are appropriate based on the questions we're asking. So, you know, the answer is it varies depending on what you're trying to do. But likely it's usually more than a year, and it can be upwards of 5 years, again, just depending on the technology you choose.
Okay, so what is known about the microbial communities and shark communities, and what are their importance?
That's a great question. Kim Ritchie is a researcher who was on that OCEARCH trip, and she is looking into that very question. She is looking into, you know, what is going on the teeth, on the skin, inside of the mouth. So she's trying to figure that out. They even swipe parts of the cloaca. They even collect poop, which sounds so weird, but they're trying to figure that out. And again, you know, some people think sharks don't get sick. Well, they do. And they do have an immune response, and they do, you know, fight diseases similarly to what we have. So it's really kind of unknown, and she's really one of the researchers who's pushing the envelope on some of these very basic questions.
The last question I see thus far is, what is the benefit of the, oh, what a cool question. What is the benefit of the hammerheads adaptation thought to be?
Well, I spent many years thinking about that very question. And if you look at this shark right here, so this is a little great white model, it's got eyes kind of facing forward. If you think about a hammerhead, it's got the big head with the eyes. What I found is that hammerheads can see straight ahead. Doesn't seem like they could, but they do. And it's because their eyes are on the ends of the hammers and they're canted like forward. So they have binocular vision, which facilitates depth perception, and their binocular overlaps are 4 times bigger than normal sharks, which is crazy. I would have never predicted that. What's also interesting is they had little blind spots just in front of their head. And I looked at another sensory system that hammerheads have and all sharks have, and that's they can detect weak electric fields. It's called the electrosensory system. And we found that in that blind spot, they use another sensory system to kind of feel their prey, and that's the electrosensory system.
We also know that the big hammerhead is hydrodynamic, so it cuts through the water much better than these pointed nose shark models do. So there's definitely advantages. And sometimes hammerheads will hunt stingrays and they'll use their heads to pin down their prey. So there's a kind of a, but not all hammerheads are big enough to hunt stingrays. So that's not across the board. So the answer is a little complicated, but we think that the sensory system is enhanced in hammerheads, and we think that that head shape is like a way for them to cut through water easier with less resistance. So it's an interesting question, and there's some papers out there that I wrote if you ever are interested and want to geek out on it.
I actually have kind of personally a very similar question. I think we've caught up on all the questions, but if you guys still have some more, please type them in really fast. We have to go back to the Goblin Shark, but I was just curious if you said that in the fossil record, you usually only find the shark's teeth, but I was curious if you were finding any like in-between species to the Goblin Shark in the fossil record, or like, is this just an adaptation that, like in the fossil record, you're just seeing spring up out of nowhere?
Yeah. Well, there are some very interesting fossils, like the one shark that I showed you in the beginning, that kind of buzzsaw shark, the world shark. So there are some very interesting evolutionary attempts, so to speak, in sharks. And to have the goblin shark with that weird protruding mouth, it's very unique. And again, it's hard for us to reconstruct back what some of the soft tissue is in some of these sharks. And again, what we see in the fossils are typically the teeth and then the vertebrae. So sometimes we'll see the centrum of the vertebrae, which helps us understand size estimations and things like that. For example, this is a lovely tooth from one of our friends called the Megalodon. So the Megalodon went extinct around 3 million years ago, but it was very large, up to about 60 plus feet long. And again, all we know about this shark comes from these amazing fossilized teeth that allow us to make reconstructions. And then it's up to us, this is a normal white shark tooth of today. This is Megalodon. So imagine, Megalodons used to eat whales. I mean, it was an amazing, and that really, geologically speaking, was not that long ago when you think about it. But, the fossils are our best way to really look back on some of these ancient species, and then using weird ones like goblin sharks to make inferences about what some of those animals were capable of in the past. But the goblin is it's a real outlier. There's not many that are like that.
We got another question in, and then I also have one after everyone else is done. What is the deepest dive you have taken personally?
I have gone down almost 200 feet. And that's not much, because a lot of people now dive much deeper than that, and people go in submarines. And as you probably know, there have been people in the Marianas Trench, which is around 36,000 feet. So I'm no person to boast about that. But what I can tell you is that I love to dive with sharks. I just got back from an amazing trip to Palau and Yap, where I spent about 6 to 7 hours a day underwater, and it was absolutely incredible to see the sharks that I saw there. I swam with manta rays that were much bigger than me, and just it blew my mind. Gray reef sharks that were in squadrons. The current was going so fast we had to hook in to a reef with a hook and fly like a kite, and just to look into the school of sharks, and they kind of accepted us. It was just extraordinary.
That's awesome. So I have 2 quick questions. One is for a guest on this call like Dean, who is younger than some of us and has this interest. Is there a piece of advice that you would give someone like him who's really interested in sharks for how to get involved with work like this?
Yes.
I would say, the one thing I had going for me is I just never gave up. I didn't know that I couldn't do it. So I just kept going. And I was persistent. I became a diver. I became an instructor for scuba. I went back to school at age 28. I didn't have an ordinary path. I was very non-traditional, but I knew what I loved. I knew what I wanted to do, and I was bold and fierce, and I knocked on doors, and I threw myself out there, and I was vulnerable, and it didn't matter because I knew what I wanted to do. And if there's anything I can say is when you know what you want to do in your heart, you follow it and you make it happen, and people will respond to you, and there will be doors that will be open for you that you can't imagine. And just keep following your dream and just be passionate about it, and don't let anybody deter you. There have been so many people that have told me, don't do it, that's stupid, it's silly. And I just kept going because in my heart, I knew it was what I wanted to do and what made me feel alive to fight for nature and to fight for these voiceless animals. And so I would say to him, just keep going. And if you ever need help, you call me, you email me. I will be your biggest supporter. I will always be there to help people because I know it can be hard. And I love helping people find their way.
That's great. Well, Dean, you heard it here first. Dr. McComb-Kobza, look up Ocean First Institute. And Bridget, if you have anything else, the question I was going to ask to sort of round this out was, for me, I'm sold. I love them all now. This is incredible. I mean, I kind of came in with a bias leaning towards it, but for people on this call, I think a lot of us are interested in how we can be a part of the solution. And so it sounds like the US is already on a great path, but for people who, I'm in Appalachia right now, not a lot of ocean near me, but are there things that we can do to support you and your work and the great work that's going on to help sharks thrive?
Absolutely. One of the biggest things that I tell people is to tell other people what you've learned, to spread the word, because, so many times animals in the ocean are demonized and people are afraid and they're not really sure. And when you have a population that's fearful or uninformed, that's when things like shark finning are allowed and they proliferate. And there are people that are not fighting and caring to try to stop some of these things. And so we just need more people who are aware. I've gone into conferences with scientists all around and talked about shark finning, and they didn't know. And so there is a big disconnect between the science and the public and nature and what we need to do. So I feel like, the biggest thing you can do is spread the word, care, learn more, read books, read blogs, and support organizations that are out there fighting the good fight. Just like my organization, we fight for conservation through both research and education, because both are absolutely important in order to move the needle forward.
That's great. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you so much. This was truly fascinating. I was just gonna tell everybody else, thank you so much for coming. If there's anything else we want to end on, definitely, follow Environment Maryland, Environment Missouri, and the Ocean First Institute on Facebook, Twitter, get on email lists. We always love those. And yeah, hopefully we'll see you all next week. Kate, do you have anything else to add?